Welcome, thank you for joining me today. And in today's training session, we are going to be doing a hands-on introduction to Bloom. So let's have a look at what we're going to be covering in this session. So this session is 2 hours long, and as Alex has said, it is recorded. So this is a very hands-on session. You will be doing a deep dive into Neo4j Bloom, and we are going to be doing everything from getting it set up to begin with, getting some data set up, exploring the data, editing the data, making changes. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff with this. And to be able to get us to be able to do this, we are going to need to do some Cypher to import some data. Don't panic. Cypher is not a prerequisite for this course. We will give you all of those scripts, so don't panic there. And also, for some of you thinking, whoa, this is a lot of stuff, don't worry, this is guided. We are going to do a lot of hand-holding in this session. So you'll have some challenging points, but it's good challenges. It's going to help you learn. So without further ado, let's get cracking and let's talk about Bloom. So Bloom is the Neo4j visualization tool, and it gives you this near natural language search. So basically, it gives you this opportunity to be able to explore and visualize your data without having knowledge of Cypher. So it's a really great way of being able to be in a position where you understand your data domain. So let's say you're working as a fraud analyst or something like that, where you really understand your data, you know conceptually how your data is connected together. Bloom allows you to go away and explore that data. So it gives you that business view of the graph. And from a user setting this up perspective, you can also tailor what you show to your users and what they can explore. So you have this opportunity around this, and we're going to be exploring some features around that. So Bloom does rely on GPU. So to get your best user experience, you have a GPU in your machine. So obviously this is based on the local hardware in your machine, and it gives you this high performance physics and rendering of your screens. So we talked about being able to explore your graph. You can also do inspection. So not only can you go away and find the start point for your graph of the data that you're looking at, you then have a nice easy way of being able to drill in and explore, and we're going to be doing some exercises where you take advantage of that. And also you are able to do some limited editing on your graph, on your data, but obviously bear in mind you do need to have right access to the database to be able to do this. So where is Bloom available? You have Bloom available in a number of places. So there are two forms of Bloom available. You have Bloom as a plugin. So this is a licensed product that you have there. But also you can run Bloom in a number of places where you don't need a plugin. So if you're using Neo4j Aura, so it is available both in Neo4j Aura and Aura Free, you can access that. On Neo4j Sandbox, so this is our sort of trying experience of Neo4j. You spin up a sandbox for free, no install, no download. You can access Bloom there. And for those of you who have downloaded Neo4j Desktop, if you do a local database on your machine, you are also able to run Bloom on your local instance there. And for those of you who are using Neo4j in a production setting, in an enterprise setting where you are wanting to allow people to have remote access to the database and visualize their data, we do have Bloom available as a plugin, so you can use it in that situation and get it running. So what we're going to be doing in this course, we are going to be mostly using, Neo4j Bloom. I should have changed that to Sandbox, don't worry. Anyway, so we're actually going to be using Neo4j Bloom, but we will touch on Neo4j Browser to get some data loaded in. So don't worry, we'll show you exactly how to do that. So what we're going to be doing, the two main components, we are going to be using either Neo4j Sandbox or Neo4j Aura to to use the database that we're going to be using. And you'll see on there how easy it is to launch Neo4j Bloom and Neo4j Browser. And as I just mentioned, we're going to be using Neo4j Browser to load our data. So Neo4j Browser is a development aid. It's a tool to help developers test out Cypher queries and visualize some of that. So we're just going to have a light touch on that to load some data in. So first of all, let's get set up. So again, you can either use Neo4j Aura Free, or you can use Neo4j Sandbox. So either of those, it's totally fine. So we are going to be using this particular data set. So we are going to be looking at the Olympic data set available from Kaggle. So you've got the link there. We are sharing the slides as well. So don't worry about frantically copying down links. You will be able to access those afterwards. And during the session, we'll also paste the relevant links so that you can just click and go. So we are going to be looking at an Olympic data set. And I didn't quite give an introduction to Aura Free. So Aura Free is the free tier version of Neo4j in the cloud. And it's completely free, but it does have some limitations. So you are limited to 50,000 nodes and 175,000 relationships. So as a result, this data set we're looking at, whilst you've got the full Olympic data set there, we've made a slight tweak in our load query to only load the Olympic Games data, which comfortably gets us underneath that 50,000 node limit if you're using Neo4j Aura Free. If you are using this in desktop or Sandbox, or you're using Aura Professional, by all means, change the query and load in all of the data. But you have all of that data available there. And we've also got a repo, and this repo has got all of the instructions as well as the sources to all of the data. I'm now pasting that in the chat. So there you'll find all of the instructions in there. So if I quickly nip over, this is what you will see. So in that link, you will have the instructions, you'll have the data model in there. You have how we're setting up on the various databases, either for Sandbox or for Aura, loading the data, so forth. So you have a very summarized version of what we'll be covering today. So you've got that link there. It's useful for a reference to the data model as we're working through. So that's the link there. That is that Bloom training repo link. Okay, so we're going to be setting up the database. So again, you have options here. I would prefer, my preference here would be Sandbox, just because you have a bit more resources available. Do bear in mind with Sandbox that it lasts a maximum of up to 10 days if you extend it, and then the Sandbox goes down. So you will need to spin up another Sandbox if you wanted to keep using Sandbox in the future. If you want something more permanent, then use the Neo4j Aura Free section. So these are your two options here. So if you're going in via Sandbox, then go to dev.neo4j.com/try. That will drop you onto the Sandbox landing page. So you just need to sign in. So you can either sign in with social media, or you can sort of use old school and use an email address and put in a password. Alternatively, if you are using Aura, then you can use the Aura link, which I believe has been popped into the chat as well. So that is another option there too. Let me just quickly pop that in. And again, just follow the instructions there with regards to getting it up. So with Aura Free, you'll need to sign in. You'll click Create a Database. You'll get an option there for the free database. So you'll select that. And then it'll you have the option to create a database, and you'll be prompted with a generated password. Do keep that somewhere safe. So that password is unique to that database. You need to store it somewhere safe. If you lose that password, then unfortunately you will have to get rid of that database and create a new one. So do keep that password somewhere safe. You do also have the option to change the password to something more memorable. So you've all got that. So you have those options. I'm going to go off and create a blank Sandbox. So the choice is yours, which ones you want to do. Do bear in mind that Aura Free will take a few minutes to spin up. So Sandbox is a lot faster. So I'm going into the Sandbox now. I'm going to click on New Project. I'm selecting the blank Sandbox, and then I'm going to press Launch Project, and that's going to go away and start up the Sandbox. So we'll give it a few moments whilst your choice of database is set up, and let's just quickly check if there are any questions so far. Right, so I've got a question. What are the number of nodes in the Olympic data set? I don't know offhand. I think we've got Olympic data from, I think, a long time ago. Yes, from 1896. So potentially looking at a few hundred thousand nodes in there based on this data model. So it's quite large. And what we've done is we're using the Winter Games to bring it down, but you can absolutely, we'll look at the load script. So I'll point out where we've put in the filter, but you can absolutely remove that filter and bring in the data set. So in Sandbox, you can have a much larger data set for this. And another question that's come in, when using the desktop, is there some way to copy your database to the local computers? So by default, if you create a local graph, if you press the local graph button on Neo4j desktop, then it is local. So that will be on your local machine and you will be able to launch Bloom from there. So we won't be providing specific support for desktop during this session, but absolutely, if you can get that working, by all means, you'll be able to follow on during the session, and all of the other instructions are exactly the same. And can we share the link to the repo one more time? I think that's been shared, but absolutely, we can keep popping that in the chat. So, okay, right. So some of you were asking about yesterday's session. Yes, so some of you who either joined me on Monday or joined my colleague Jennifer yesterday, you will have already loaded in some data. So let me just quickly give you the query to do that. So hopefully I'm going to show you here. So I'm just going to open my browser. So to launch Neo4j browser, so I suggest everybody does that. You will do the open with browser, and then you have an option there which is open with Bloom. So we'll be covering that shortly. But for those of you who were doing the sessions either yesterday or on Monday, let me just quickly show you what that query is. So I'm just going to wait for the browser to load up so I can type the query in there and you can see. So bear with me one moment and I'll give you that query, and then we'll copy and paste the query into the big marker chat as well so that you have that query. Right, so what you're going to do, so that the query that you want to be able to delete everything in your existing database is match n, and then we're going to do detach delete n. And what that will do, that will select all of the nodes in your database, detach all of the relationships, and then delete everything. So I've copy and pasted this query into the big marker chat for those of you who are following on big marker. So just copy and paste that and run that, and that will clear out your database. So you will have enough space to be able to follow along with Bloom. Oh, sorry, I posted it at one moment and I shall post it in. Right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about Bloom before we get started. So, oh yeah, let's load the data first, then we'll get started with Bloom. So we're going to be using this query here. So I'm just posting it in the big marker chat. Let me just quickly post it here. And so this is the query that we're going to be using to load up all of our data. So I'm not going to explain what this query does. What I recommend for you all to do is to just select all of the text in there, and then that's what we're going to be pasting into browser. So I'm just going to do this because the credentials didn't load. So 1 second. So yeah, so copy all of the text here. This is going to set up all of the constraints and indexes, and it's then going to pull the data from the various places, and it's going to give us our data that we're going to be working on in Bloom. Okay, right, so I am logged in. As you can see, I'm connected to my database. So I'm just going to paste the query up here. So you want to paste it up at the top where you've got this box. So you can see it's all pasted in now. And then just press the play button. So make sure you've copied all of the text in there so that you don't miss a line or anything like that. So copy all of that in, and then I'm just going to press this play button here, and that's going to now go away and load up all of the bits and pieces that I need in there. So I'm going to give that a moment to load up. So please follow along with that. And we'll let that all load in. And then I'll quickly, whilst that's loading, let me quickly point out the bits. If you want to include all of the Olympic data, so if you are not using Aura free tier, so you've got more capacity for nodes, all you need to do is just remove this line here where it says with line where line.season equals winter. So you'll notice this repeats several times here. So just get rid of that line in all of those, and then that will load all of the data in there. Okay, so that's still going, loading a bit more data, and then we'll have a look at what it looks like. Right, let's see where we are at. Still going. Just give that a moment. Right, so whilst that's loading in the background, let's just quickly check. So just something to bear in mind. So for those of you who are using Aura free, when you click on browser, it does prompt you for your username and password. So the username is always Neo4j, irrespective of whether you're using Sandbox or Aura. And you just paste that password in for Aura. It will prompt you for the password. So that password that I told you to save it, grab that, paste it in, and then that will get you connected into a browser on Aura free. Right, okay, some of you have already got the data in. Wow, faster than me. Impressive. So I've still got a few more bits of data that need to go in, but it's excellent that some of you are already set up and raring to go. So give that a moment. And oh, quite a few people are good. Oh, excellent, excellent. So I'm the slow person here. Brilliant. I like that. That's all good. And then we shall press on shortly. Last one for me. There we go. So that's all of my stuff in. Look at this beautiful, beautiful column of ticks here, which is marvelous. So if I click over here, you can see all of my data's loaded in. Somebody asked how many nodes we had. Well, so for the winter data set, you can see here we've got 36,000 nodes. So that's got us comfortably under the limit for Aura free. And again, with the relationships here, we've got 102,000. So again, we're comfortably under the limit for the relationship limit for Aura free. So those of you who are not using Aura free, by all means, remove that winter, that where clause on winter, load all of the data. So it's all good. Right. Okay, we've got all of this data in. Now let's move on. So let's talk about setting up the perspective. So if we do a quick tour of the perspective, and I'm going to show you when we launch Bloom, we've got a number of elements going on. So we've got the search bar. So this is where we put in our Bloom phrases. And this is where we can put in a relationship type, a node label, or we can just start typing text. And if we've got an index set, then Bloom will use the index to be able to give us a word. So rather than, say, putting in athlete, so we know that athlete is one of our node labels, what we can do instead is we can start writing the athlete's name. So do bear in mind you want to think about case sensitivity, but you can do that and it'll start looking through the index to pull that value up. We also have filtering options as well. We've got the perspective drawer, so that allows us to do some tailoring and changes to our perspective. We've got settings and about drawers. We've got the usual stuff we'd expect in various bits of software. we have got the scene. So this bit here, this is where all of our visualizations happen. That is called the scene. So that is where we will be able to see various bits and pieces. We've got the legend panel. So the legend panel gives us the opportunity to do things such as understanding the color coding between node labels, what the things are. It allows us to mass select labels in the scene based on what category they're in. We can also do some tailoring on how things appear as well. So a little on that a bit later on. We're all going to have a go at doing that. And then we have other options as well. So we can toggle hierarchy. So we'll have a play with that later. And we also have a little mini map as well. So sometimes we can have some very large visualizations up on the scene. And the mini map allows us to very quickly see what the whole scene looks like and navigate around there. So we've got those elements there as well. So we talked about the perspective. So this is the perspective draw. So you can see here we can define the perspective. We can also do some customizations on there. So for example, customizations on here. So we can pick and choose what values of properties we want to show or don't want to show. We can also customize relationships, and we can also set up search phrases. So we'll touch on search phrases later. Don't worry too much for now. We've also got the various settings here, and the one that will be of interest to you will be the settings cog. And this is where we can do things such as, say, the number of nodes we want to put a query limit on, a little bit more on that later. We can also set things such as timeouts to the database and so forth. And when we start looking in the legend side, this is where we have an opportunity as well to do some customization. So we can change the colors of labels if we don't like them. We can change relationship line colors and thickness and size. So we're all going to have a play with that in a bit. Right. Okay. So getting started with Bloom. So less theory, more doing. I'm all about having a go and doing, because I think that's the best way to learn. So that's what we're going to do. So just talking a little bit about Bloom. So when you launch Bloom for the first time on a database, a new data set, what Bloom's going to do is it goes away, it talks to the database, and it has a look at what's going on. So it'll go off and do some sampling of what you've got in the database. So for those of you who are attending the session either yesterday or Monday, you'll know that you don't declare a schema ahead of time for Neo4j. What you do is you will basically put your data into the database, and then Neo4j does schema on read. So as you're putting the data in, that's what's going to define the schema. So what Bloom will do is it'll do some statistical analysis of what's already in the database. And like that, it's going to figure out what are your commonly used labels, what are the properties associated with those labels, what relationship types are using properties with those, that kind of thing. It also goes away and has a look at what indexes have got in place. And then Bloom can use this information to make a recommendation for what kind of perspective you want. And what a perspective is, it's a customization based on your data and then any other bits and pieces that you've done. So think of it like a template for your data. So it's a template for data on your database. And what you can do with these perspectives, if you can massively customize those perspectives, and then you can share them. So you can basically take a perspective, you can tailor it based on a certain use case or a situation, and then you can share it with other people so that they can take that perspective and get going. So that's perspective. That's what happens when we load it for the first time. So it's your turn now. So hopefully everybody's set up, everybody's got data in their database. So we are going to have a go with the perspective. So I'm going to show you quickly how to do the perspective, both the auto-generated one and then the building out one from scratch. So I'm going to show you that very quickly. And then I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to have a play yourselves. So with both the sandbox and the Aura free, depending on which one you're using, you will need to specify a password to Bloom. So I'm going to very quickly show you how to get that password in Sandbox. So in Sandbox, if you press the down arrow, then here you'll have an option here. This little thing pops up and you've got an option here that says connection details. So if you click on there, you will see what the password is for the database. So that's my password here. For those of you on Neo4j Aura Free, your password is the password that you were told to put in a safe place. So that's the same password you're going to be using. The mechanics of getting to Bloom are very similar with Sandbox and with Neo4j Aura Free. What you want to do is click on the little down button, little down arrow next on the button, and then select Open with Bloom. So what will happen as well with Sandbox is you'll get a friendly little reminder as well of what your credentials are. Oh dear, let me just unblock this. Right, let's try again. And there we go. Right, straight into Bloom. So you will need to for all the things. So like I said before, the password is always the username is always Neo4j, and then the password is your respective passwords, either the one that you've been issued in Bloom or the one that you've been issued with Aura Free. So I'm going to put that in, click connect, and then what you will see is it's now doing a quick sort of talking to the database, having a look at what's going on, and then it's going to pop up shortly with a landing page about Perspective. So I should give that a moment. There we go. So you will have something that looks like this. This is the Perspectives gallery. And as you can see, because I've not used Bloom here on this instance of the database before, I have nothing here. So we've got a couple of options here. So we're going to be creating Perspective. So the first thing you want to do is click on the Create Perspective. And then you've got a couple of options here. We've got Generate Perspective and Blank Perspective. So I'm going to very quickly show you the Generate Perspective. So I'm just going to click on that. It's going to go away, talk to the database. It's going to create a perspective based on that statistical analysis I was talking about, where it's having a look at what labels are in use, what relationships are in use, etc. And there you go. It has generated a perspective for me. And then if I want to use the perspective, all I need to do is just float on that section and press Use Perspective. And as you can see, it's popped up and it's got this information here. And just for a bit of fun, I can just type in athlete and just press enter. And it's going to bring back some athletes. So there you go. That is my first Bloom phrase that I've searched in there. So let's talk a little bit about the manual perspective too. So I'm going to click on the perspective button here. And then what you'll see is you have these sort of 9 dots, this grid. So this will allow us to jump back to the perspective landing screen. So I'm just going to click on that. And then the other exercise I gave you was the manual attempt. So what you can do there is if you click on Create Perspective and then select Blank Perspective, then I'm going to use this perspective. And as you can see, nothing's been generated. I've got nothing in the legend here. I have to do it all myself. So I can do things like click on Add Category, and then it will give me the option. So I can select athlete. I can then select, choose what I want to exclude. So I can do things like this. I can do the same with the relationship. I can say, what I want to show, what's visible, what's hidden. So you get the idea. So that's the manual one. So remember, you click on this button at the top here, and you press this sort of this 9 dots formed in a square to get you back to the perspective gallery. So I'm going to give you about 3-4 minutes. So have a play. So have a play with the generating the perspective. Have a play with creating the perspective yourself, and then we will continue. Right, so one question's popped up about deleting all of the nodes, but you still see the old nodes sticking around. So that's most likely happening because you've got indexes and constraints in. So give me one moment. There is an APOC function that will quite helpfully delete your existing schema. So it does mean you're going to have to reload all of that data again. So I do apologize. So let me just quickly get that APOC query for you. So what you can do, oh, don't want that one. So what you can do is you can run this query here. That's going to delete all of the schemas, but you will need to then re-add all of the indexes and constraints. So let me just quickly pop that in the chat. So you don't need to rerun the entire query. Let me just quickly show you what you need to rerun. So I'm just pasting the command in the big market chat, but you will need to re-add your schema bit. So to re-add the schema, you just need to add this bit here at the top. So all of this stuff here, pop that back in afterwards to just reset all of the indexes. So hopefully that will get you all sorted. So other than that, have a play. So there's your exercise. So have a little play with the perspective, and then we will continue. Right, so some people are saying they're having an issue where Bloom seems to keep spinning around or not loading. Just try refreshing the window or close the window and then try launching it again. So hopefully that will clear it up. But do give it a bit of a moment first. Okay, right. So hopefully you've had a bit of fun with the perspective. So I would heartily suggest that we stick with the generated perspective. So I am going to select this one here, which Bloom very kindly created for me. So that's the one I am going to jump to. And I've got my scene here. So I'm just going to zoom this, maybe this a little bit smaller. Doesn't, oh, I don't know how to shrink it. Oh, well, there we go. Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about searching in Bloom, and then you're all going to have a go in a moment. So we talked very briefly about how you can start exploring your data. So what you can do is you can specify a property name. So for example, with our athlete node, if we've done name : Linford Christie as an example, I appreciate that's a summer Olympian rather than a winter Olympian. But let's say Linford Christie, a British sprinter, then we could just type Linford Christie. So we've got an index on the athlete name, so we can just start searching with that. We can also search with a category. So a category is synonymous with a node label. So as you saw, one of the first things we did was we put in athlete. So you can put in athlete, press enter, and it's going to bring back all of the athlete nodes to a limit. We'll talk about limits shortly. Or you can do by relationship type. So you can, for example, search part of team, and then that's going to bring back all of the nodes that are either side of that part of team relationship type. And then what you can do afterwards is you can do a bit of exploration. So the really beautiful thing about Bloom is you don't have to know the entire pattern that you're going to look at. You can basically get your start point up on the screen, and then you can explore and expand. So we're going to have a look at that in a second. So the first fun bit of data exploration we're going to start today is we are going to look at an athlete called Maxime Dufour-Laporte. So what I would like you to do, and I'm going to give you a quick example, and then I'm going to give you a bit of time to go away and explore, is what I would like you to do is to look up the athlete Maxime. You are then going to double click on the Maxime node when you bring it up, and I want you to have a look at the exploration card that pops up. Try clicking on things, see what happens. And then also try right-clicking on the Maxime node. Try expanding out that node. Try expanding out the nodes that come off of there. And then the ultimate question I would like you to answer once you've had a bit of exploration and playing with the sort of the Bloom functionality. I have a question for you all, and I would like you can shout it in the chat. You can do however you like, but I would like you to tell me what interesting fact do you discover about Maxime Dufour-Laporte. So let me just quickly show you. So I'm going to paste the name in the chat. So you can, so for those of you who want to copy paste, you can do so. So this is our start point. So I'm going to select this node. So you notice I select the option that pops up like so. I clicked on it. And because I'm now finished, I'm going to press return or enter to bring up that node. So there's Maxime. And then all I need to do now is I can double click on Maxime's node and I'll get some information. You can see here, I can click on the relationships and I can see all of the relationships that are associated with Maxime. And if I click on neighbors, I can see, you know, what is the neighboring node on there. And then you can see, I can do things like double click on this and it's going to expand out that relationship. Another thing I can do as well, I just make this a little bit smaller. We are very, very big on this screen. So another thing we can do as well on here is I can right click, for example, on this new node that's popped up, and then I get some options here. So I get an option here and, well, this is interesting. It won't let me expand this node. So let me just see, maybe something's, oh, sorry about this. This is a bit unusual. It should be allowing me to expand this node. So it could, I just need to have a look at what's not happening here. But anyway, try right clicking. You should hopefully see an expand there. Otherwise, you see you've got the options here, so you can explore what's going on. So you can have a look at all of the different relationship types that are going on in here. And you can then also click on the neighboring nodes and explore. And you can also do things like select a particular category you want to look at. So have a little play with that. So again, I'm going to give you about, I'll give you about 5 minutes. This is a nice bit of fun of exploration that you can do. So do a little bit of exploring and tell me what interesting fact can you find out about Maxime Dufour-Laporte. So see you in 5 minutes. Right. How did we find that? Hopefully we had a nice bit of fun there. So we got an opportunity to do a bit of exploring and having a look around. So let's go back to my question, which was, what more do we learn about Maxime? And a few of you have spotted this, so well done. Let's dig in. I thought this was great fun. So let's have a look. So Maxime was part of the Canada freestyle skiing. Oh, I can expand now. And it's going to expand everything. So that's fine. We can expand everything. It's all good. So let's have a look. So she was part of the Canada freestyle skiing women's moguls in 2014. And let's have a look at the neighbours. So there were a total of 4 athletes. And if we have a look, 2 of the other of her 3 co-athletes in the team were her sisters. So yes, it was very much a family affair. And we can do a bit of looking as well. Like, how did that team get on? So let's right click and have, oh dear. Let's have a look at what's going on as well. So 4 athletes involved. And they also won some medals. So she also won some medals. So, and the particular team in question. So you get the idea here. So she was competing with her sisters. So that was a nice bit of information we discovered about Maxime. So I'm just going to get this out of the way. I'm just going to minimize this map as well. So just drop that out of the way. Right, so for those of you who want to now clear your scene, so we go for the next query, what you can do is right-click on a blank bit of scene and then press clear scene. And that's going to clear the scene for you. So we are ready for our next challenge. So let's talk a little bit about configuring Bloom. So we've had a bit of fun. We've done our first bit of data investigation using Bloom. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do with Bloom, some of the configurations we can do and so forth. So what we can do, we can choose to exclude nodes and relationships completely. So this is quite a fun data set. So there's nothing obvious here we want to hide away. But let's say we were loading in a data set around network and IT management, and we've got, say, a user perspective where we want to understand what services available, to what machines and that kind of thing. But let's say we don't really want to know about all the wires and all the tiny bits of network that are far removed from us. We could choose to hide those away so that they don't appear and people don't accidentally search for them. The other thing we can do as well is it's great fun to be able to put in these Bloom phrases, and we're going to have a go with some of those. But what you can do as well is when you've identified exactly the kind of query you want to run, or if you want to really sort of beef up the power of your Bloom perspective and give a very specified, parameterized Cypher query, you can do that via search phrases. And we're going to have a go with that later, so don't worry too much about that. And as I mentioned before, once we've finished configuring the perspective and we can do all sorts of wonderful things with it, we can export that perspective. We can import ones that other people have created, and we can just generally share the perspective. So some of these sharing options are bound to the plugin version only, but it's good to have an experiment and understand how these things work. Okay, so I just want to quickly check. Let's have a quick look at configuring. So let me just show you that quickly. And I can't quite remember if we have a go at doing this. But anyway, so let's have a quick look at what we can do to inspect. So let's bring back Maxime again. And what you can see is if I double click on Maxime, you can see that the name by default, if you've got a node with the word name in it as an example, then by default, Bloom assumes you probably want to have that displayed on your node. But you can change that. You can change what you show. And you can see here we have got the ID. So this will be the row number from the CSV that we loaded the data in. You can see we've got name, we've got page rank, more on that later. We've got the sex of the athlete and so forth. But if we decided, you know what, we don't want to show ID, that's an internal reference for us and the user doesn't need to know that, we can configure that. So I can just quickly show you how we do that. I click on the menu here, I select athlete, you can see this menu pops up. and I can say exclude ID. And maybe I want to also, for example, display the sex of the athlete as well. So I can click this under caption and it's going to show that. So if I go back now, what you'll be able to see, unfortunately, Maxime's got quite a long name, so it's probably not going to display as well as I hoped. Oh, there. If I zoom in, you can see it. So you can see now we can add bits to the caption. And if I zoom back out again, and if I double click on Maxime, you can see now I no longer show the ID. So you can do some configuration there. Similar process as well within the relationships. You can choose what you want to do and how you edit those and so forth. We can do the configuration there. Another thing as well that you can do, which is really, really nice, is we can do some configuration on this side too. So for example, if I want to change the color from yellow to something else, I can. And another thing I can do too is I can say, well, actually, I'd rather have an icon to represent some of the things here. So for example, I can select a picture of a person. So I know that straight away, especially if I've got lots of athletes on the screen or their small nodes, I know immediately by reference that that's going to be an athlete node. And if I, for example, want to put in a location icon for this, for example, I can do one of those. There we go. I can do something like this. So I've got something sensible. So if I put in city, I'm going to now bring back a load of cities, so I do apologise. Might be too many cities. So if I put in cities, and immediately I've now got something sensible that I can reference to. I've got these nice sort of icons. So you can get an idea of how we can customise those. Okay, right, let's talk about Bloom patterns and exploring the data. So we started off with just bringing up that individual node, that individual Maxime node. And then what we did, we either double clicked and used the exploration pane, or we right clicked and expanded paths. And that allowed us to go off and explore. But if we know what our data model is, then we can start to put phrases, we can start to build patterns. So very, very quickly, a friendly reminder that if you go to the repo, you do have a copy of the data model here, so you can refer to it. So in this example here, where we're talking about Maxime, part of team competed in event. So here, this is an athlete node, but we're using the property of name to get in there. But we know that's a node, and we know that's the athlete node. Part of is our relationship. Team is a node label. Another relationship competed in. And then events. So if I quickly jump back to our data model, you can see that we have got athlete is part of a team that competed in an event. So you can see that. Oh, so did we say compete? Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah, competed in an event. So you can see that's how we're using that data model. So if you know what the data model is, you can start to write these Bloom patterns. And the other thing that you may have spotted as well is, for those of you who've used Cypher before, you know how you have to be case sensitive when you are doing your node labels and your relationship types. You don't have to in Bloom. So in Bloom, you can just write them lowercase. You don't have to worry about the underscore, that kind of thing. So Bloom will automatically, in the background, it goes away and does some things to try and make it a bit more human readable, human writable type thing. So you notice you can be a lot calmer. So let's have a go at this. So let's have a look at Maxime, part of team competed in events. So let's have a quick peek at that. I'm just going to clear the scene and get rid of that. So let's have a go. So Maxime. There we go. And what you can see as well is I can just click and select and build out the pattern. So we said part of team. I can do these things. I can build it out. You can see what's going on. I didn't have to write part underscore of. It generates these things together. And it's just looking through and it's building out this pattern. So hopefully it's working a little bit faster for you. Just obviously a bit slow here. So I wanted to know part of event. So I can do competed in event. And that's going to bring out that whole pattern. So it's slowly picking it together. So this is what I want. I can now press enter, and that's going to go away and bring back those results. And something that you may have spotted as you're watching as I was typing this pattern is that Bloom does something very special. So you don't have to specify that entire pattern of Maxime Dufour-Laporte, part of team competed in event. You can actually drop things around. So Bloom does this thing called filling the gaps. So doing this phrase here at the top, I could have also done Maxime part of team event, and it will do exactly the same thing. It will bring back the same results. I could have done Maxime team event, just using the relationship types, and Bloom will fill the gaps for me. I could have used just the labels and it just filled it out. I could have used just the relationship types to fill it out. So my apologies about the key. I've noticed that for some reason the colors have gone the wrong way around. So ignore the key. So the red is the relationship. Oh no, it's just the last one I've not corrected. Sorry. I apologize about that. But let's have a go at this. So if you see me having a go with this, so let's just clear this again. Clear scene. So you can see I can do the same idea. So I can do Maxime team event. There you go, Bloom's filling the gap for me. I could have done with the relationships as well, part of competed in. And again, Bloom's going to go away and fill those gaps for me. So it just needs to find that, but it should hopefully, there you go. So it figures it out. So obviously this is rattling back, but you get the idea. So all of these things does the same thing. And I can now do relation, so you get the idea of what's going on in here. So part of team and event. So you get the idea of what I can do. And this is all going to bring back exactly the same data. So it's bringing back the same 3 nodes. So you get the idea of what's going on there. Right, your turn, another turn for you. So you have another athlete, Yelena Dubok. And what I would like you all to do is tell me what Olympic Games was Yelena part of. So again, I am going to copy paste her name in the chat. So do have a go at finding out what Olympic Games was Yelena part of, and think about all the different patterns that will get you there. So don't use the explore pane. Try to write the patterns. And again, I will leave this up for you as well. Here is the data model. I'm going to leave that up for you. Hopefully that'll make it easier for you to figure out what that phrase is going to be. And again, I'm going to give you about 3-4 minutes. So have a go with that. And we'll be back to try the next challenge. Right. So looks like some of you have been having some fun with that and you've discovered what Olympic Games Yelena was part of. So let's have a look. Just going to clear the scene here. Let's bring up Yelena. Right, so what did we say about, we said what game she was part of, so let's quickly have a look at the model. So we know we go from athlete to team to games. So I'm literally just going to type Yelena team games, and that will give me an answer, hopefully. There's my Bloom pattern, and that's what I want. So I am going to press return and get that running. And there we go. Right. So yes, we had many answers coming in. Salt Lake City 2002 and Nagano 1998. And some of you also gave some bonus knowledge there, which is she also competed in 3 different teams as well. So 3 different teams that are part of events. So well done to all of you. Right. Hopefully you had an example, you had to think about the different patterns you could come up with. So again, very quickly, we know we can just do athlete, then the 2 node labels. We could have done athlete and then just the relationship types. We could have done the athlete, the relationship type, the node, the relationship type, and then a node again. So lots of different patterns how we can get there. Right, so what we can do, so we've got quite a basic pattern there. And we can start to build up on top of this. We can start to build some quite big patterns in Bloom doing this. And we can do things such as searching paths between 2 points. So if we know there's 2 points that are of interest, let's say we know 2 athletes and want to exploring different paths between them, we can do some sort of basic hierarchy and dependency analysis as well. And we can also do some limited cardinality queries with Bloom as well. So we'll show you some tricks and tips about how to do that. So let's talk about searching paths between 2 points. So this is an example where we have 2 nodes of interest. So here we're interested in Elizabeth Hayden, and we're also interested in Eric Hayden. More siblings. I think there's a theme going on here, isn't there? So we've got 2 siblings here. And what we can do is we can try and have, we can effectively specify a specific path. So maybe we want to understand, what team was Elizabeth and what team was Eric on, and, which games were in. So were they playing at the same games, but maybe they were in different teams? So you can do something like that as an example. And there's another thing you can do as well. So we talked about finding more than one occurrence. So you can do this. You can do this situation where you can search for an occurrence of more than one thing happening. And what I suggest you do is you use this concept, or I like to call it a concept of a pivot point. So your pivot point is the thing that's you're saying, does this thing have more than one of attached to it? So for example, if I wanted to find out any cities that had more than one Olympic Games in them, then I would treat city as my pivot point, and then I'd repeat games either side of it. So if you think about what's happening in a sort of graphy situation, this would basically say, does the city node have more than one relationship with the games node? So that's what's happening there. And we can do this across several hops. So let's say, for example, I wanted to know whether an athlete had competed at more than 1 games, then this is the approach that I would use. Again, athlete is my pivot point, and then I would do team games, because as you recall, that's sort of teams is like the center of our universe here. So we have to go via teams to get to games. And then we just go back again. So athlete here is our pivot point. So something to bear in mind when we're going across several hops is it is possible that an athlete that has competed in more than 1 teams at the same games, but this is just a query that's going to help bring back any cardinality if it exists in the data. Right. Another thing we can do as well is we can access properties too. So what we can do is we can specify a specific property. So this is very good if we do not have an index on that property, or we want to get to a certain property in a node. So in this example here, if I wanted to get at the Olympic Games that took place in the year 1972, then I would specify the property name, which is year, and then the property value. So a couple of things to bear in mind. This is case sensitive. So both the property name is case sensitive and also the value, if it is a string, it is also case sensitive too. So you can also access the properties and you can string together patterns too. So here's the biggie. I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes on this. If you've got questions, chuck them in the chat. We'll have a look at these. But I would like you to have a go at answering these questions. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen. You've got a copy of the model there as well. So you've got a reference point. You've got all of the information on the screen. As we were doing before, when you find the answer, feel free to pop it in the chat. We're keeping an eye on those. We'd love to see these participations. So these are your challenges. So challenge number 1. How many gold medals has Claudia Pechstein won? So you are, hint, hint, you are going to be using a property value for this. So it's going to be medal type gold. So I'll just show you very quickly how you can find out information about property names and so forth. Let me just clear the scene. So if I put in medal, oh, spell it correctly, and bring those back. So you spot we've got 3 types of medal here. And if I double click on the medal, you can see we've got a value of type. So note that the property name here is lowercase type. Also note that the value is uppercase. So it's a capital S for silver, capital G for gold, capital B for bronze. So if I do type gold, this is going to highlight that node there. So that's the gold medal there. So that's how you go to get to that one. And then we've got how many teams has the main guy been in. So you are probably going to be using that pivot query. So you're going to probably do something like team, athlete, team. And then you've got another one. Can you find some athletes that have represented more than one country? So now that's starting to get a longer pivot. So you're going to go country, team, athlete, team, country. And then can you find out different ways or different paths that link Olivier Genot and Patrice Seville? So without further ado, I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes for those. Share your discoveries in the chat and we'll be back shortly. Right, how did we find that? I saw some really interesting discoveries in the chat, so you all sunk your teeth into the challenge. So some of these are a bit harder, some of these were a bit easier, but we had some interesting discoveries, so let's go through them and answer the questions. And something to bear in mind as well, all of these are documented in the repo, so again, we'll chuck the link in there again for you to have a look at. So don't panic if you didn't get them all. Some of these are a bit tougher, but it's all good. Right, so let's get cracking. So the first one on the list was, how many medals did Claudia Pechstein win? So let's have a look. So we're going to put in athlete, then we're going to put in team, then we're going to put in medal, type gold. So let's quickly explain what's going on here. So we are saying we're going from athlete to team. So if you're part of the team, so the whole team won the medal, which means any athlete associated with that team also won the medal. And then what we're doing here, we're doing medal for our node, and then we are specifying we want the property of gold. And let's find out how many medals she won. So a lot of you got this. And we can use this handy guide here. We can use the legend, very conveniently tells us that she was part of 8 teams that have a relationship with the gold medal. So she won 8 gold medals, lots of gold medals. And some of you also pointed out that she won a load of silver and bronze medals too. So very active athlete there. Right, so the next question was, how many teams has Lamine Goy been in? So let's check that out. I'm going to clear this query. So if we quickly pop back, for us to know how many teams they've been in, we need to go team, athlete, team. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to do team, Lamine Goy, team. And let's run that query. Just give that a moment. Right. 8 teams, another 8. Part of 8 teams, my goodness. There we go. So that's that one answered. Then the next question we had was, can we find some athletes that have represented more than one country? So let's go back to our data model. So we are going to do country, team, athlete, team, country to use the sort of this palindrome pattern, this pivot point around athlete to help us answer that question. So let's pop back and we are going to do country, team, athlete, team, country. That's what we want. I'm going to run that query. So do bear in mind, you're going to have athletes who've been more than one team. But what should hopefully be quite clear is that when it appears on the screen, it's going to be quite clear to see which athletes have been representing more than one country. So there you go. So you can see where it kind of stretches, and you can see our countries, the blue dots. So what we can do here is just quickly zoom in. So we've got an athlete here in yellow. So we've got, and I think somebody mentioned this one, Hans van Helden. So Hans van Helden has represented both, whoops, zoom in here, France and the Netherlands. And who else have we found? So we've got one there. And let's just move this out of the way. Oh, hello. Have we got a double linking going on here? Nope, it's just the visuals. Right, and let's zoom over here. Let's see what else have we got. We have got a blue country. Have we got any other blue countries around here? Nope, just the one. So some of you may have different results to me. Don't panic. It doesn't mean anything's broken. What we're hitting across here is the limits thing. So we'll talk about the limits very shortly. So some of you may have got more athletes come up. Some of you may have not got any athletes. So don't panic too much, but you get the idea. And what you can see very clearly is how these things pop up. And I think we might even be able to play with the hierarchy button. And maybe that will help pop the countries out a bit easier. Oh, that's not helping. Never mind. I'll get rid of that. There you go. But you can see that's how we spotted it. So we've got the two. Oh, no, we've got another one here. Hang on. Missed an athlete. So what have we got in here? So got an athlete here. Who's this? There we go. We've got Bart Veldkamp. And Bart Veldkamp represented both Belgium and I think the Netherlands is back in the centre there, wasn't it? So there you go. So you kind of get the idea. So it's a little bit clunky, but the point here is I didn't need to write a Cypher query. I just knew what the data model looked like and I could go off and do that inspection. So there we go. So we've answered those questions and we've got one more question left. So this was a little bit of a tough question. And the question was, let's quickly zip back. What different ways are Olivier Janot and Patrice Seville linked? And we said, think about what might link them. So they're both athletes. So something that might potentially link them if we look at it. So maybe they were part of the same team. So we can start putting that in to see if something pops back. They're probably part of the same country. So that might be an option. Maybe they competed at the same Olympic Games. So this is where we'd have to do something like athlete, team, games, team, athlete. Oh, we can do athlete, teams, country, team, athlete. So we've got a couple of options there. So let's try that. So let's try athlete, team, games, and then let's try athlete, teams, country. So let's have a go at a couple of those before we move on. So I'm just going to quickly copy paste the names. So let's do team. And then we had event, team, and let's put in the other person. So is there a link there? So if the pattern doesn't exist, then Bloom won't bring it back. So it's going to have a look. Nothing's coming up. Okay, so it's not event. So how about, oh, sorry. So not in event. So let's try country. Let's try country as the next one. Oh, look at that. So there you go. So you've got one link there. They were part of the same country. Brilliant. So we're going to select that pattern and then bring it up. So there you go. So that's one way that they're linked. So, okay, Monaco. And let's do one more. So let's see if they're part of the same game. So let's have a go at that as well. So just going to, I'm going to leave this data up. And let's do team, country, team. Oh, look at that. They're also, oh yeah, so we just did country, didn't we? So games, that's what I meant to do. I meant to do games. Sorry about that. Let's try games. Were they part of the same games? Oh, they were as well. So there you go. So there's a couple of ways that they're connected. So let's bring up the games as well. So they both represented Monaco. And they were both at Torino 2006 and Sochi 2014. So nice bit of fact finding we've been doing there. So all good fun. So I'm just going to clear the scene and let's continue. So we've talked a lot about the various patterns and things we can do. And what we can do as well is maybe we want to tailor a little bit what we're looking at. And there's some things we can do. So we can use shortest path. So we're going to quickly show you how to use shortest path. And what we do is we're going to select or deselect nodes and allow us to do that. We can also select and deselect nodes and then expand all of the paths associated with those nodes. We can dismiss nodes too, so we can get rid of them away from our scene. We can select an area. We can select a category. So let's have a go at this. So I'm going to have a quick go. I'm going to walk through doing this. And then So we're going to do shortest path together, and then we're going to have a go at 1 gold medal. And what I want you to do is to be able to show the athletes that won more than 1 gold medal. So we want to think about how we only displayed the nodes of interest. So let's have a quick look at shortest path. So we had Oliver, Jeannot, and Patrice. So let's get rid of this. Let me just quickly show you shortest path. So let's bring up the Olivia node. Let me bring up the Patrice node. And then what we could have done as well, we could have saved ourselves a bit of effort. And then what we could have done is to selected both nodes. So you select them either by clicking the node and pressing Control and the Mac equivalent. That's one way of selecting the nodes. Another way I could have selected the nodes is if I do a click and long hold on the scene, then the lasso tool pops up and I can do, oops, I unclicked too soon. I can get the lasso tool and that also selects them. So that's how you can select nodes. So you can do shortest path with 2 nodes. If I right click on them, I can do path and I can do shortest path. And that's going to bring back a shortest path that connects them. So the shortest path that's come back is that they've both represented Monaco. So that's how they're linked. The other thing I can do as well is I described, we've got those nodes selected, is I can right click and I can expand, and I can expand all of the connections associated with them. So you can see it expands all of those together. And then what I can do is if I decide I want to dismiss the Monaco node, I can select that, I can right click, and then I can do dismiss node. And if I say, well, actually, I want to get back to a clear scene and I just want to have the 2 athletes showing, I can select those 2 nodes, right click, and then I can dismiss other nodes. And we are back to where we started. So let's go back to our original question. I would like you to find out which athletes that have won more than 1 golden medal. So remember, we've only got 1 medal. So we know the cardinality based on the number of teams that are associated with that gold medal. So I would like you to change the scene. So what comes back is to find all the athletes. You want to answer the question, which athletes have won more than 1 gold medal, and just have the athletes displayed. So bring up all of the data you need to do in the scene and then dismiss everything but the athletes. So it will give you about 2-3 minutes to have a go with that. Don't panic if it's a bit, whoa, what's happening? I will show you how to do it shortly. Right, so let's answer this question. So it's a bit of a silly exercise, but I think you start to get the gist of what you can do, the power of being able to, sort of bring up some data for exploration, then get rid of the stuff you're not interested in, and bring up some other data, and then get rid of the bits you're not interested in, and just go off and explore. So let's have a quick look at this. So the challenge was to find athletes that have won more than one gold medal, and then to just leave the athletes up who've won more than one gold medal. Right, so if we remember, for us to be able to answer that question, we're going to basically do that pivot pattern again. So we are going to do gold medal, team, athlete, team, gold medal. So athletes are pivot point, and we want to get more than one gold medal. So let's go off and do that. So we are going to do medal. So it's going to be let's just pop that in the query. There we go. That's what we want. So this is going to bring back. So don't forget, so athlete be more than one team. Yeah, so this is the case where these are all going to be those gold medals, those beautiful gold medals. So some of you may have spotted when you run this, there's a little thing that pops up at the top that says 1,000 nodes exceeded. Don't panic. I'm going to explain this. And some of you may have a different answer to me. Again, it'll all make sense shortly. So hang tight and I will explain what's going on there. So if we zoom in, so you've got all of these teams associated with the gold medals, and we've got those. So this will give us basically the gold medals that they've won. But I just want the athletes. I don't want these 585 teams or the one medal thing. I literally just want to keep the things up. So what I can do, I could select all of the athletes. That'll take all of the team notes. That'll take a long time. But another option I can do, and we can do a fast select. So remember we talked at the very start about being able to select all the nodes. So what I can do here is click on this button here. This will select, if I zoom out, you can see the little blue circles or anything. That will select all of my athlete nodes. And then if I right click on one of the selected athlete nodes and then select dismiss other nodes, there we go. We now have just the athlete nodes up, or 464 of them before the limit was hit on the database. So that is one way we can answer that question. Okay. Oh, yes. Did you notice something? And this is a bit that you're probably noticing. Some of you may be going, whoa, hang on a minute. I don't have 464. Or some of you might be going, no, I've got more. So this is hitting an eternal limit. So let me just quickly answer a question that's popped up, which is there a way to get the results athletes with 2+ medals or a list? So you can't necessarily get a list. So you can't do lists in Bloom. So this is when you would need to go off back into browser and write those queries. So Bloom is more exploration, whereas browser is more of the query tuning, and you can get clearer view of your results. So this is where you can push back properties as table results. Okay, so let's talk about limits. So, okay, here I've obviously tweaked with Bloom, so I've set the limits. So some of you may only be getting about 150-ish athletes coming back that have won more than one gold medal. And obviously, there'll be more than that. Oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. So something to bear in mind. So Bloom tries to set limits to give you a good performance experience. And one of the things it will do is when you specify a Bloom pattern, in the background, Bloom is scurrying away, putting together a Cypher query and then pushing that query to the database. And it will use a lot of the limit keywords to basically try and cut down where you might have big explosions of data so that you get the results back in a sensible amount of time. And what we can do is we can set those limits. So if I pop back into Bloom, so note we've got 464 athletes there. Let me clear the scene here. And if I go into settings, I can adjust the I can suggest the limit. So here it's 1,000. If I dropped it down to say 200 and run that same query, rather than getting 400 odd athletes, I'm now gone down to 86. And if I clear the scene again and let me up that limit, so let me go up to, I'm not going to go too crazy. So let me just move it up to 1,500 as an example. And let me run that same query again. I'm probably going to get a lot more athletes coming back. So just give it a second. There you go. Look, 725 athletes that have won more than one gold medal. So you get the idea. So do be aware of limits. So if you do spot you're getting results back from Bloom that you weren't expecting, so maybe you weren't getting as many results as you thought there should be, it could well be the limit that is causing something in there. So I'm going to go back in here and just drop it back down again so that my query is a little bit faster. I'm dropping it down to 500. So there you go. So that's just something to be aware of. Right, let's talk about search phrases. So we've done all of this good stuff. We've done this exploration. We've looked at connections. We've discovered ways of spotting things. And now we've got a good idea of some queries that maybe we want to run over and over again. Or maybe you've put in a request to somebody and say, hey, you know what, this kind of thing I want to run all the time. And there isn't a Bloom phrase for this. There's no way I could do this in a sensible way, writing a Bloom phrase. What you can do is you can create this thing called a search phrase. And they're a really great way of being able to tailor your Bloom experience. And you can use some really nice user-friendly, intuitive phrasing for this. And as I said, this is good if you've got a same query that you're going to be repeating over and over again. As some people are asking, what if you only wanted to get athletes that have won 3 gold medals? This is the place we can do it. So this is where we can create a search phrase and answer that. And it's a really great way of being able to provide helpful functions. And you can store these search phrases within your Bloom perspective so that your whole team can use them. So we are going to have a go at creating some. So I've already got the code written up for you, the Cypher query, and we're going to do this together. So I'm just going to pop the link to where you can find the phrase in the chat. So I've just popped that now in the big marker chat. And let's have a look at what it looks like. So this is what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to show you the copy paste. So to create your Bloom phrase, I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to click here into the perspective draw menu option. And then I click on this section here, which is called search phrases. And I'm going to add a brand new search phrase. And I'm going to talk about what this search phrase is going to do. So the search phrase here is going to be all about finding an athlete called something, something. So let's say I don't want to be remembering all of the lengths of the names, and I don't want to be trying to remember if they've got middle names or not, because that's something you've probably spotted with the data set, is some of the athletes in there have got middle names, many middle names, and we don't always think about the athletes based on their middle names when we're watching them on television, watching how amazing they are at their sport. So I'm going to create a brand new search phrase, and this is going to allow me to specify a first name and a surname, and it's going to help me find those athletes and bring back those athlete nodes. So let's talk about what's going on in here. So the first thing here, the search phrase, this is going to be the user-friendly name that we use to be able to run our search phrase. And what you can notice here is I can specify parameters. You don't have to, but here I am going to specify 2 parameters. So this is what I can do when I run the search phrase. The next thing you need to do is give it a description so that you know when you're looking at what search phrases you've got available, you know what it does. So here I am going to say that my search phrase helps me find a person based on their first and last name. And then last but not least, I am going to specify the Cypher query that is going to help me achieve this aim of the search phrase. So here we go. I am putting in match a athlete. So it's going to match all of my athlete nodes, where the name contains the first name that I've specified, and the name also contains the other name that I've specified. And then this is going to return all of the athlete nodes that match that. And there's a few other bits and pieces that you can do too. So if we were doing another query and other things, you can basically say, well, what data type this is. So this is a string, but sometimes you need to specify that actually using an integer or a float. And there's other bits and pieces we can do as well. So we can put in the suggestion key. So it's not valid in this example here, but you start to get an idea of what we can do. So we can do things like a suggestion. So it will suggest some potential parameters we want to use, or we can create a Cypher query to help us do that. So you start to get a flavor of what's going on. So I am now going to save this. So let me just quickly, I don't think there's a save button on this anymore. Okay, so I've created my search phrase. So let's give it a whirl. So just to give you an example, if I just start typing some names, I'm sure there's a David in there somewhere. If I start writing David, so you notice when I start typing names in here, you see this is using the index to try and suggest some names that might be of interest. So let's go, we've got any ands in here. Oh, here we go. This is a nice one. So we've got loads of names in here. So I'm going to use my search phrase and I'm going to try to find Anne Margarita here. Let's have a go with that. Let's try and find Anne Margarita. So let's do find. So I start typing in the name of my search phrase. So find athlete called Anne Margarita. And let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. Oh, there's two. We got two. We've got an Anne Eva Margareta Melander, and we've got an Anne Janeth Margareta Rosendahl. So we brought them back. So there you go. That is our search phrase. It allows us to do that. So I'll give you a couple of moments to do that and give the phrase a test. So I've tried it with Anne, but give it a go with some other names. See what you come up with. So I'll give you a couple of minutes for that and then we'll press on. So we've got a few more bits and pieces to cover before we hit time. So we're going to ramp up a little bit. So I'll give you a minute or two to test out your search phrase, get that up and running, give it a test, and then we'll move on to the next bit. Right, hopefully you had a bit of fun with that. And for those of you who are a bit more experienced with Cypher, have a think about what other queries you'd write. So I throw the gauntlet down to you. Write the search phrase to find the Olympians who've got 3 or more gold medals. Right, so let's look at the next bit. We are going to be looking at editing data in Bloom. So I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this as we are starting to come to time, but you can edit data. So you have some options there. You can edit properties, you can duplicate nodes, create new nodes, relationships between nodes, and change labels. But something to bear in mind, you do have a number of limitations. So you can only create new nodes based on the labels that already exist. You can only create relationships based on relationships that already exist. So let's have a quick look at that. So let's pick up this node here. What I can do is if I double click on the node, I can now do some edits via the code. So as long as you've got right access to the database, you can do some tweaks here. So you notice I've got the editor pen here. So if I click on this, this will then allow me to make some changes, and then I can press the tick to select that. The other thing I can do as well is I can duplicate a node. So if I right click on this node, you'll notice I have an option to duplicate Anne. And also, if I then wanted to put a relationship between two nodes, I can select those two nodes, right click on one of them, and then I have the option to create a relationship. So I can create a relationship based on one of these existing relationship types. So for those of you, I would recommend you have a go at this in your own time if you want to have a play with this. So here's a fun bit challenge for you to do this, which is to add a relationship between city and country for cities. So do have a go with that in your own time. So we've got some notes here about editing. So we've talked about this already. Now let's move on to the last exercise of this session before we wrap it up. And we are going to look at customizing our perspectives. So we had a quick look at this earlier, and there's lots of customization you can do. So as well as choosing what properties you want to show or don't show, what nodes to hide away, relationships and so forth, we can also do things to make our perspective look visually appealing. We can use it to help us quickly spot based on colors what's going on based on size. So we have a lot of exciting things we can do. So as well as changing default colors that have been suggested when we auto-generated the perspective for nodes and relationships, we can change their sizes. And not just that, but what we can do as well is we can do dynamic sizing. So if we've got an interesting property, we can say, well, based on this property, you will make a node bigger or smaller, or a relationship thicker or thinner, and so forth. So it's a really great thing we can do. And we can also do this on a specific range of properties, and we can do it on uniqueness property value. So we have a lot of interesting things we can apply that on, and we're going to have a go with that shortly. And we also had a look at how we could apply icons to our nodes to make them more easier to spot what different categories they are from. So we are going to have a go with this. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes for this, as this is the last exercise that we're doing. So let's talk about what we have got. So we have got a PageRank score on athletes. So some of you who have been exploring may have noticed we've got a PageRank score. What's PageRank? For those of you who have not come across it before, it is a system that can be used to give you an idea of how influential, how well connected a node is within a network. So it is a graph algorithm that was put together by Larry Page of Google fame. And for those of you who are interested in all things data science and data science algorithms, do check out the Graph Data Science Library, where you will spot PageRank in there. But anyway, I have put the PageRank score on all of the athlete nodes. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend a bit of time picking appropriate nodes for athletes, and if you want to. And the other thing as well is we're going to use dynamic sizing. So we are going to use dynamic sizing. So you may find these ranges useful for the minimum value of 0.15, the max value of 4.85. So we're going to do all of this together. We are going to do this, and then based on setting these dynamic sizing. So the bigger your PageRank value is, the more connected you are. And that in our data set is going to be based on things like, have you been a part of many teams? Have you represented your country more than once? Like, these are the kinds of things that are going to make you more and more connected. And when we've done the configuration on dynamic sizing, we are then going to look for who's got the biggest nodes in our data set, and that's going to tell us who's the most connected athlete. So we're going to do this together. So let's go over to Bloom, and I'm going to clear my scene here, and I'm going to get rid of this, and let's do some configuration. So again, For those of you who want to tailor the nodes and pick a nice icon for country, an event, medals, or medals a quick one. I'm going to do medal quick one because I think there's a medal picture in here. There we go. Look at that. There you go. So customized medal as well. So you saw how easy it is to customize the medals, but let's have a look at how we can dynamically size our nodes. So let's quickly bring back an athlete. Let's bring back an Anne. I don't mind which Anne. Let's pick this one up. If we quickly go in and have a look at Anne and double click on Anne, you can see she's got a page rank score of 1.17. So you can see that's the value we're going to be using. Let's do some configurations. If you click on your node, so click on the athlete node here, we are then going to select rule-based. And this is where we are going to specify the rule of what we're interested in with regards to dynamic sizing. So I'm going to click on add rule-based styling. I'm going to select my property key. So I'm going to select page rank. And then what I'm saying here is range. So remember, we've got a range of sizes. So we suggested the min one was 0.15, max is 4.85. So let's do that. So I am going to say I want to change the size of the node. So for the smallest value, so the min point 0.15, I'm going to pick the smallest node possible for this. And then for the biggest node, I want to pick, so the biggest page rank score, I want to pick the biggest node possible. So I'm going to do 4.85. So I've set my ranges. And then all I need to do now is select this apply size. So let me, before I make that change, let's bring up some athlete nodes. So let me clear the scene. Let's bring back some athletes. So as you can see, they are all homogeneous in size. So let's go into my rule and I'm going to apply, size. I'm going to apply the size. So now we go back here. You can see the smaller the page rank score, the smaller the node, the bigger the page rank score, the bigger the node. So I'm just going to go back into my limits and I'm going to put this up to crazy number. I'm living dangerously. And let's just rerun this again and bring back all the athletes. And hopefully I shouldn't hit the limit on here now. Oh no, I've still hit the limit. But you can kind of get the idea here. So we're just going to end up looking for the biggest node. So we can use Cypher to help us out here. But you get the idea of how we can basically size things dynamically based on the property. So again, we can do this to help us spot what's going on. So have a few moments to do that. Have a moment to have a play with changing the icons, and then we will finish up. Right, okay, so I will let you look through that in your own time to find the most connected node. If you get a little bit stuck, we do have the solutions in the GitHub repo address. So let me just pop that in the big marker chat again, so you can go off and have a look at the solutions if you get a little bit stuck. Right, so thank you very much for joining me today. Let's have a look at how you continue your graph journey. So a very quick reminder to you all, we are at the halfway point of our training week. So if you are excited and ready for more, then come and continue to join us. So tomorrow, my colleague Will is going to be doing a session on building APIs with the Neo4j GraphQL library. So do come along and join that. Again, all of this does not assume prior knowledge with Neo4j Cypher. So you are all good. Come along and join in. And then on Friday, my colleague Claire will be teaching you all about creating a knowledge graph based on simple machine learning approach. So you are going to be using NLP and all of that good stuff. So all of these sessions are on at 1 p.m. UTC. For those of you who have come a little bit late to the party, don't worry, we have got a catch-up list. So all of these recordings are available immediately at the end of the session. So you've got a link there to the YouTube playlist there. So do come along there, have a look at any sessions you've missed. If you want to watch this session again, go to the playlist, you'll find it there. So what else is there available? We have a bunch of content to keep you excited, keep you learning about graph. So we have got free online training. That's our Graph Academy course. So that's dev.neo4j.com/learn. It's completely free, self-paced learning. And if you want to have something for your troubles for all of that time that you've invested, you can also do our completely free Neo4j Certified Professional Exam. And if you pass, you get a certificate and a t-shirt to demonstrate your Neo4j skills. You can also check out our videos. We've got loads of videos on best practice, hands-on examples, community stories, all sorts of things. So if you go to dev.neo4j.com/videos, you can see them. There's lots of technical stuff in there. Please come and say hello. Come say hello to our community. So we have got a Discord server. So dev.neo4j.com/chat will get you to our Discord server. Come say hi. We also have a forum. So that's where you can write more detailed examples, check out the knowledge, see what people are working on. That's dev.neo4j.com/forum. So do come along and say hi. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining me today. Thank you very much to my amazing colleagues who have been answering all of the questions that have been coming up during the session. We really hope you've had lots of fun, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at the GraphQL session. Take care and have a fabulous day.